Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see everyone hopping on a bit early. We've got a lot of people who have registered today, so I'm just going to wait for a few more moments before we get going. Wait for the clock to turn around to on the hour, and then we'll make a prompt start. And I'll grab a glug of coffee. Okay, well, let's make a start. We've got a lot of people registered for the webinar today. We've got a lot of people from Middle East, a big contingent from Oasis, I think. Welcome to you. I think a lot of my Middle East colleagues, I suspect, have registered to take this webinar on a catch up, but I can see some of you on there as well, which is lovely to see you, Joel and people. Lovely to see you. This webinar today will be 30 minutes maximum. I will let it run on over for 5, 10, 15 minutes. The last webinar we had a lot of chat and conversation, which is the part that I really enjoy. Earlier in the pandemic, I did these at 1 hour, but I think it's more respectful of people's time to make it a bit punchier and to keep within the 30-minute boundary. I'm going to aim to talk to around 25 minutes, and then to leave some Q&A time. But as I say, we can let that run on. So this is me. I'm Greg Jeffries. I own Visual Displays, and I also consult. I have a consulting practice in standards displays. In fact, a lot of the things that we're talking about here and the things that I post about on LinkedIn. I currently lead AVIXA's Standards Steering Committee. That's the group that runs and produces the standards. And I've either led or co-written a number of the standards, particularly the visual ones, and we'll be referring to a few of them today. I am very proud that I'm associated with the LTSMG and the AV user group, and I've got some friends and colleagues who are on the call from both places today. And by the way, for those of you who are not, those end users that are here today, if you're not a member of the AV user group, that really is an essential group to belong to. I'll talk about that maybe a bit more as we go on. I'm also currently writing a book on this hybrid teaching and meeting spaces thing, although strictly speaking, what I'm really doing is writing a treatment for a book, and just to see how frightening that is going to be to do. But that's the attention as things stand. Another thing to put in play just immediately here, although I work I'm working a lot with Microsoft. These are very much my views and not Microsoft's. I'm working with them, at the Hive and so forth, to particularly to develop the use of ambient light rejecting screens. And other areas of displays and meeting planning, and space planning. But this presentation is very much mine. However, having said that, I have to take my hat off to Microsoft, because they've shown real thought leadership in considering the whole space thing, and not just the technology and the apps that run within it. And they've very much provided the campfire around which all of this debate has been happening. And Of course, other platforms are available. Here I am doing my webinars on Zoom, but I think Microsoft do need to be acknowledged in this, and it's also the case now that the hybrid spaces are generically referred to as Teams rooms. So part of the background to this is that there's been, to this webinar today, we're talking about projection and dvLED screens. And this is factored off the back of the fact that we've moved to much larger image sizes. And we'll be referring to DISCAS, but DISCAS, remember, sets the minimum image size, not the display size, not the maximum display size. Now, Microsoft uses projection for their spaces, and they recommend, at the moment, they're recommending the Epson range, the EBPU range, I believe. But there's been a lot of there have been some fantastic signature installations of dvLED as well. I'm going to at the moment. Spoiler alert, for most installations, I think projection is the most suitable and most cost effective, but that will very much change, I think, in the future. The question is when. So just to come back to this whole thing about image size. Now, we use the DISCAS image size standard to ascertain what the image size needs to be. And the whole thing with Teams rooms, and particularly the front row layout, is that they've thrown a spanner in the works, because now the content is contained within a content window within the overall image area. Whereas once upon a time, we could think of the image size basically being the same word for content, but now that doesn't apply. And in fact, within Standards Steering Group, we're about to refresh the DISCAS standard, and that's one thing that we're going to address with the with whatever the workpiece that we do to get that going again. I'm not going to run through the numbers here, but basically what that is saying is that if you use the DISCAS kind of default element height of 3%, that equates to a 6:1 ratio. That's to say the farthest viewer should be no more than 6 times the height of the image. When you apply that to the content window, which we have to, and if say the content window is 60% of the image height, then that ratio becomes 3.6:1. So that's a substantive change. And then thinking about a size, that is one big advantage of ambient light projecting, ALR projection. By the way, I will always now talk about ALR projection, because people have this association with projection on standard white screens, which simply, it will not do in 2022, let alone 2023. And I'll loop round and talk about that a bit more as we go down. But projection, ALR projection is infinitely scalable. You can use different lenses, different throw distances to produce the size that you want. You can have any aspect ratio that you want. I think one of the reasons that Microsoft has partnered up with Epson is that Epson has got a 21:9 EDID in that EBPU range, which means that can connect nicely to an MTS compute being used in a front row situation. I'm sure the other projector manufacturers will join that club if they already haven't, but for the moment, Microsoft is backing that horse. So the thing about DVD image size is there's a fixed relationship between the pixel pitch and the resolution. So, thinking about the moment you're seeing these displays being offered around 138 inch at 1.5 millimeters, and that little table there that I've made, that just goes to show that what the size of the display will be if you multiply, for example, 1.5 millimeters by 1080, which is the pixel height of HD, and then following that through for UHD as well, for UHD 4K. So that that's the reason for that, and that does need to be thought about, because it is essential, particularly in Teams environments, to have this one-to-one pixel mapping. You know, if you use any form of interpolation or scaling, you immediately lose the resolution. So the resolution becomes irrelevant unless you deal with that. So this whole thing about having one-to-one pixel mapping is really important, and again that makes that can present some difficulties with dvLED if the resolution doesn't match the actual what the content's being presented. And just thinking a little bit in more detail about resolution, you know, at the moment we're running in HD pixel density, and that includes for front row, because although we've got the wider display, it's still 1080 pixels high. But I think the thing is the question is when the Teams environment will move up to 4K or UHD, more strictly speaking, not whether it will. And then the nice thing about using projection is that you can future-proof it. I do have to say though that at ISE particularly, I saw some really spectacularly beautiful 0.9mm pitch displays. And their day will come. They're still too bright, I think, and they're still way too bloody expensive. But you know those displays are absolutely gorgeous. But when they become realistic, I think we'll be talking about them in a different way. But for the moment, for most people, that's sort of over the horizon. And just thinking and speaking now more in general terms. If you're looking at displays from a distance, the resolution is a much lower priority. So that's why dvLED is absolutely perfect for signage and those sorts of applications. And then if you're thinking about megapixel, like really super fine pixel resolutions, then from my background in simulation, what we do is we use multi-projection systems where we have multiple high resolution projectors, soft edge blended as an array. And you can create incredibly high resolution displays with that. Right, now, brightness. This is something which is widely overlooked, and it's really, really important because unfortunately, asthenopia, which is a posh word for eye strain, is frequently inadvertently designed into display system, and so thinking about the display luminance is very important. By the way, a useful distinction here is that brightness is not a word that describes light. Brightness is a word that describes our experience, how we perceive light. And the way that we measure light is to use luminance, which is in candela per square meter. We use nit as a short form for that, which is the SI unit for luminance, and I use one of these luminance meters that looks like a Super 8 camera to measure that. So the reason that brightness is a very important consideration and usually completely overlooked is that, as I say, you can design eye strain, and the eye strain occurs in a space where you're looking around from various objects, for which the word, and in scientific terms, the thing that you're looking at we call a task. And if the various tasks around the room are very different luminances, your eyes are adjusting up and down all the time that you go around there. Now, in Teams rooms where people might be in those spaces for extended periods of time, this is absolutely mission critical. And so the metric that we use is task luminance ratio. That is to say, to keep the luminances of all the spaces within the room within a certain range. Now, again, I'm not going to go through the number there. There's a spreadsheet there. You can download this, as you can download everything off my website. It's there for free. This is very much an open source project, the things that I talk about. And what this is basically saying is that, in a normal meeting room, you've got between 300 and 500 lux on what's called the working plane, the desk. And then we use a sheet of white paper as the reference for that, because people are always using note paper. Now, under those sorts of situations, then the piece of paper will have a luminance of around 130 candela per square meter, and you don't want anything more than 3 times that. And what that says in plain terms is that really that you want the luminance of the display to be somewhere down in the 200 to 300 candela per square meter mark. And that is really important. Now I'm just going to show you here a quick thing here. So this is ambient light rejecting material that we use, and it looks there like a regular white screen, but in fact it's a super engineered material, and it has complete black from one direction. So the principle of this material is that that when you look at it, that's the side that faces the projector. This works, by the way, with ultra short throw projectors as per the Microsoft signature rooms. And then this side absorbs all the ambient light. Now, going back to the display, the presentation, then the really important thing to note there is that the critical thing actually is the black levels. So if you're thinking about projection displays for Teams rooms, it's the black levels, paradoxically, you've got to worry about. And with dvLED, it's the white levels. You've really got to limit those back. That is that's a key thing. Image quality is basically the byword, or contrast is another word for that. And the standard that we use for that is VIX's ISCAR standard. Now, ISCAR standard is the new version that's just come out. I was on the task group that wrote that, as I was for the task group that wrote PISCAR, the original one. The difference about it now is that PISCAR was projected image system contrast ratio, and ISCAR is image system contrast ratio. Because now the thing about ISCAR is it applies to all display types on a level field. And for Teams rooms and for teaching and so forth, the basic decision-making category within the ISCAR standard is the category that we work to. It has a 15:1 contrast ratio, which sounds very low for those of you who are used to using brochure contrast ratios, which we don't use in this case. But it's actually really difficult to hit that, and really it's as a result of ambient light. That is a separate study that's there. A really overlooked element within choosing displays, and particularly dvLED, is this fill factor. Now, something like a projector or a back illuminated LCD panel, the normal flat panel displays, we're used to the idea that the pixel areas are pretty much fully illuminated. Now with dvLED, you've got this diode in the center of the notional pixel area, and so you've got these sort of spots of light with a gap. So the pixel pitch represents the distance between the pixels. With the dvLEDs, particularly the more affordable ones, are sort of 1.5 mil, 1.2 mil. You've got these dots of light they're separated, which means that you can be quite careful using them for teaching and for meeting rooms. Because when you get quite close to the display, as you get close to the display, you can actually see the dots of light, and that's, apart from the fact that they're often too bright, that can be an issue. if you look at the, so this is a metric that, for example, that one of the big manufacturers use, and they have a this little metric. It goes, if you take the pixel in terms of millimeter, you multiply by 2 and express that in meters, that will give you the kind of a rough guide how close you want viewers to be. And so, for example, in the case of a 1.5 mil pitch, that viewers need to be further than 3 meters, than 10 feet back from that. And that's something that's often kind of overlooked. Other kind of smaller points here is the weight of the displays. Don't get me wrong, we work with dvLED. The background to my business and to my professional practice is in being an optical and a mechanical design engineer. And, we design structures and we work with dvLED, a lot, but some of the reasons that things get specified are not really straightforward. One of those is actually weight. Quite sometimes that there are walls and so forth which can't take the weight of a dvLED display, and a projection screen even an ALR screen is a fraction of the weight of that, and therefore you can put displays on walls without needing additional strengthening or pattracing. Another reason, and we've just, and these next 2 slides actually come from a major project we've just finished for through one of our integrators for a major merchant bank in London, is that the reason they actually wanted to put in dvLED, but they couldn't for 2 reasons. First of all, that they've got a very strong environmental tariff and within the building, and a dvLED would have emitted too much heat, put too much load on the heating and ventilation system. And of course, projection screens don't emit any heat at all, and laser projectors emit very, very little heat. And the other reason, which it hadn't occurred to me before, which was that they wouldn't put a dvLED screen close to where emergency exit, because there's some law about adjacency which applies in London anyway. But that was quite an interesting thing which I'd never heard of before. I don't know if my friend Pete van der Zanden is on the call, but he leads the AV and IT at Delft University of Technology over in the Netherlands. And this is a study. I think one thing that's really going to come up to possibly bite us on the backsides in 2023 is this whole environmental consideration for displays. On campus, AV and IT, really take the major tariff in terms of power consumption and also the heating and ventilation. And so Pete's department has instigated this study looking at the kind of the life cycle analysis, and it's quite interesting because they take into account the carbon use within to make the thing start with, the distribution of it, delivering it to site. The biggest thing, of course, is the operating costs during the lifetime, the power to be used, and then that to be used in disposal. Another thing that comes up with that is if you like, how much toxic landfill you're going to create at the end of a display's life. But Pete posts fairly regularly on LinkedIn, and there's a link there to his description of that study. That's a kind of a watch this space thing, and that will be something that will inform the 2Desk software, the management AV management software platform that they produce as well. But I do advise everyone to follow Pete on LinkedIn, because although his thing is higher education, there's so much of what he does that applies to anybody who's interested at a high level in AV and AV application. Just drilling down on that thing a bit more is that this thing about cost of ownership, it does need to be looked at in a 360-degree way. And one thing that we're working on in the consultancy is looking at that, using a variety of sources, including the Avixa's energy management, to have some workings and some way of looking at that, so that you look at the considerations of specification in a kind of an overall way. Getting towards the tail end of what I really wanted to talk about today. A nice comment from Cyril. I thought there was a question there. But anybody who's got any questions or comments, just throw them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll have a look at them in a moment. I'll just take a swig of coffee here. So as we saw earlier on, Microsoft is now using projection, and you'll see that in a lot of the materials they put out about the Hive. But the really important thing to say about that is it's just got to be projection done properly, not the good old white screens. It just has to be these proper ambient light rejecting materials. That one that I showed you was made by a DNP, who's the only manufacturer of genuinely optical ambient light rejecting materials. There are others as well, some of which that we use, but this thing it just has to be about ambient light rejecting material. Obviously, you'll get the slides after this. And there are links out on. There are links out to various useful things, but there is a case study about using ALR materials on a massive project we did at Glasgow University, and that was something that you can look at. The other thing that you can grab is we produced this MTR displays quick guide. I can see the links missing there. We'll put that in before the slide deck goes out. But we've basically got a range of display packages which is based on our digital canvas displays, and these are standards curated bundles where we put the DNP ambient light rejecting screens, projectors, with mounts and credenzas, and we produce that to help you both in terms of looking at how to specify, but also there's a product range which you of course should be buying from us. As mentioned before, although I've been consulting for years and years, really a large part driven by demand to do with Teams Rooms consultancy, I've separated that out into a specialist consultancy practice, Greg Jeffries Consulting Limited. You can see we spent a lot of money thinking about that name. But I'll be spending a larger part of 2023 onwards, spending time, hopefully getting paid for doing the things that I love doing, which is operating in the thing that we're talking about here. Just another heads up about the AV user group for those of you who are end users, and also for manufacturers and so forth. That's the most incredible sponsorship opportunity, but you do need to get involved with that. I'm running a sequence of webinars into the autumn and into January. So please do come and join me for these. I'm looking at various other subjects. I've got an in-depth look at the new ISCAR standard. I've got an in-depth look at understanding ambient light rejecting screens, and also something about aspect ratios. There's been a lot of talk about that lately, and I'm going to do a short session taking a deep dive into that. Here are some links to some the latest Microsoft materials, and that seems to grow exponentially with Microsoft. This AV magazine, who again I'm proud to be associated with for many years, they've done a big special in their current edition about Teams Rooms, and I've got a large article in there, and there's a link to that there too. So there are other slides in the deck here too, but they really are kind of more as a kind of as a backup for material that's there. But I'd just like to thank everyone for joining in. I'm going to stick around for a while to see if there are any questions. Let me just come out of here. Last time we really had lots and lots of questions. And let's see if we've got anything in the chat here. Huh. No, you're a relatively quiet lot today. I've obviously spoken you into, I've talked you into submission. We had a lot of questions and comments, but as we're coming up to the half hour, then I will stick around if anybody wants to chat or say anything. But I want to thank everyone for spending time with me today. We've had a lovely turnout, a number of friends and colleagues and new faces. And then we'll have the other people who are going to watch this on catch up when they wake up tomorrow or later down the road. But please do look at the webinar program, keep looking at my LinkedIn posts, and I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. So this is me taking a coffee break while I'm waiting for any Q&A and chat, but actually, Chris. So Chris has asked, the point of my last slide, front row not for twin displays. Is this based around the guidance and display or content height? Okay, Chris. Let's put that slide back up into play. Okay. Although twin displays can work for front row, I really do not recommend it. In this case here, you can see that you know, in that visual, you can see that the content window, the individual content windows on each side would be tiny for the people at the back of the table, and so people being able to see serious content would be quite restricted. And also, just looking at that in plan view, I've just drawn blue arrows down the center line of each display. You know, if you get the monitors of any sort of realistic size so that people can see it, then the next problem is that people will then, the people at the front block the view of the people at the back of the table. I mean, there's a bigger issue there. About you know, moving to more tapered table sizes. Yeah, I mean, in fact, Chris, you're right. You know, if the meeting room wasn't, so Chris has come back and he said, what if the meeting room wasn't quite as long and more oriented as per the high furniture layout, i.e. horizontally displays? Yes, that is the case, but still, having one good-sized single screen will always be better for front row than twin displays. There is no doubt a place in the universe for twin displays, but honestly, I've never yet found a case where a twin display was a better option than one proper size single display. But you know, this is like I say, this is very much you know, my opinion. Chris, and you know, you talk quietly to people with Microsoft, and they have their own opinions too. But people have classically, you know, do use twin displays, and I'm not going to try and diss them too strongly. So Chris has come back to say that he happens to like front row on 16:9. And in fact, yes, that layout does look nice, but that's still a single display, and the there are more options for rooms when you have 16:9, which you can window down to 21:9 if you want to. Perhaps, Chris, if you want, we can take that that offline as a discussion. But you know, there's no such thing as the perfect answer with in these cases. It's just you work through the if you like the design priorities, and then you like I say, you have to prioritize them. But maybe we'll take that offline. Right, now, do we have any other questions and comments? So Tim says, can you speak a bit more to the difference in ALR screens, please? I've only seen one DNP supernova some years ago, which looked great on axis, but poor off axis, colors changed, etc. So my concern is restricted viewing angles. Okay, Tim. So there are two types of ambient light rejecting screen overall. You know, one is the genuine optical ones, which use nanotechnology, and they are lensed, and that falls under the DNP. That falls under the DNP brand. And then you've got other ambient light rejecting materials, which we do use. Draper have them, Draper Euroscreen, but those are to do with coatings. And they have a sort of combination of some reflective tint and some darker tinting, and it's a balance of that. So DNP has three types of screen materials, one of which is high gain, but has narrow viewing angles, and the other one is low gain, which is the one that we use, in fact, which has got ultra wide viewing angles. So these days we never use the high gain version of the DNP material, because the black levels of the lower gain material are way better, and also you get real 180-degree viewing angles. So yeah, you can still buy the high gain version, but basically we don't sell it, and you know, for that reason. So that was a great question, Tim. Thanks for feeding that one in. I wonder if we're going to get any more. Have another swig of coffee. These webinars have been you know, a fantastic thing for me. I really enjoy them. I started doing them at the beginning of lockdown, and they were kind of a lifeline to me in a number of ways. But it's been a massive learning experience for me to be researching and working in these areas, and to get the feedback in the way that I do from this has been you know, really inspiring. Okay, well, I think I think I have kind of run the course here with any questions that we've got. Chris and Tim particularly, thank you so much for joining in the dialogue. I hope that I've spoken fairly and adequately to the questions and points that you've raised, but I always review the chat afterwards, and I'll probably pick these up with you individually after this as well, because like I say, I really appreciate the feedback and the interaction. It's a bit much when you've got some guy at a webinar just going blah all the time. It's very good if we can get some sort of interaction going, even though it's not quite the same as being in the same room with each other. Right, so this time I really am going to sign off. I would like to thank everyone for having participated and been along. You will get the link to the recording and the slide deck as well. And I hope to see some of you, if not all of you, on the next webinar that we do. I think actually the next one is next week, because we knocked it back. But anyway, it's on the schedule, and apologies for not actually telling you what the date is. So we will end that now, and I look forward to seeing you at on a future recording.